At first, this will seem like just a story about a dog, but it's a lot more than that. It's a story about life in the Japanese imperial court and the downside of fortune. See if you can figure out the meaning. There's an old Japanese book from the Heian period called The Pillow Book, written by a court lady named Sei Shonagon. In it are writings about the things she saw in court. This incident is one of those things. This dog story begins with a cat. Emperor Ichijo loves his cat, so much that he grants his cat the 5th rank of nobility. Ranks are usually given to people, not pets, but try telling the emperor what he can't do. One afternoon, the cat is being cat and is lying on the veranda. The cat's caretaker tells it to come inside, but even the gods cannot control such creatures, so why does she think she can? Annoyed, she decides to give the kitty a little scare. She calls out, "Okinamaro!" That's the name of a dog that everyone in court liked. And hearing his name, the dog happily runs over, causing the cat to panic and dash inside. Unfortunately, the emperor sees the whole thing and orders his men to beat Okinamaro, then sentences him to a life of exile on Dog Island. Now, Dog Island could have been a sad island that they sent unwanted dogs to, or it was a figure of speech, like, he can go to hell, or send him to Canada, or something like that. The emperor also fires the caretaker. Afterwards, the ladies of the court pity Okinamaro, reminiscing on how he used to saunter around the palace like he owned the place. Now he's just gone. 3 or 4 days later, a miserable howl tears through the palace. It goes on and on. Even other dogs gather to see what's the matter. A maid runs in, telling Shonagon and her friends that it's Okinamaro. He's back. He misses his humans. But that was a mistake. 2 servants are currently beating him to drive him away. Even dogs must follow the emperor's will. The ladies send someone to stop the beating, but it's too late. The howls have stopped. Someone comes in with the bad news that the dog has died. That evening, as the women are discussing the sad situation, an injured dog hobbles up to them, all bruised and swollen. A few of them say it's Okinamaro. Others shook their heads. They call his name, but the dog does not respond, so they decide maybe it's not him after all. They give the dog some food, but it doesn't eat, and eventually they leave it alone. In the morning, he's still there. While doing the empress's hair, Shonagon looks at the dog, and emotions clutch at her heart. She talks about Okinamaro, how sad and horrible his death was, and the dog seems to understand. It starts to tremble and cry. Shonagon says, "You are Okinamaro, aren't you?" The dog falls to the ground, whimpering. Was he just pretending not to hear his name before? Soon everyone gathers around, amazed that the dog is back. They cheer and laugh until the emperor arrives. He looks, then says, "How interesting that a dog can have such emotions." Then he pardons Okinamaro, and things go back to normal. Even after getting beaten and kicked out, Okinamaro is still happy hanging around at court with his human friends. Now, what does this have to do with court life in the Heian period? A lot. So it seemed like before he was kicked out, Okinamaro was loved by everyone. He walked around like he owned the place, and people were just his overly dressed chew toys. But because of something not even his fault, he lost the emperor's favor, and his life crashed and burned. Welcome to the Heian court. One day you're on top, ordering people around, fortune is in your favor. The next day, you're sent to Canada. Everyone feared the downfall. Ladies in court had to keep up appearances and say clever things. They had to support the right people and keep their husbands, or they may just one day lose everything. Sei Shonagon experienced the downfall herself and saw it happen to someone close to her. She served as a lady-in-waiting to the Empress Teishi. Teishi was the top consort of Emperor Ichijo, and her father was a powerful man. She sat gracefully on top of the court hierarchy. But it all came tumbling down, starting in the year 995. First, her father died from an epidemic. Then her 2 brothers get caught in a scandal. One of the brothers, Fujiwara no Korechika, was head over heels for a lady, but suspected that the retired Emperor Kazan was pursuing the same woman. The story was that the 2 brothers shot arrows over the heads of the retired emperor and his men to scare them away, but accidentally shot one arrow through the retired emperor's sleeves, almost hitting him. They were then exiled. The historical texts claim it was an accident, but one text says the brothers beheaded 2 of the retired emperor's men, which doesn't make the whole thing sound very accidental. The brothers were later pardoned and allowed to return to the capital, but by that point their reputations were already in the gutter. Without a strong family in her corner, Empress Teishi lost a ton of power and was eclipsed by a new empress consort. When her place burned down because even her house lost faith, she had to stay at a modest residence way below her status. She had fallen. She died depressed and humiliated. One interpretation of the Okinamaro story is that the dog represents her brother, Korechika. He was punished and exiled in shame for something he had no control over. Okinamaro's emotional return is like Korechika's return from exile. Shonagon might have been expressing her longing to see Empress Teishi happy again, writing about happier times. When Okinamaro came back, he didn't respond to his name when called, kinda like he's pretending to be a different dog. It's a metaphor for court life. This actually allowed people to treat him well because they thought he wasn't Okinamaro. They couldn't take back a dog that was banished by the emperor. In the imperial palace, you had to mask your true self, play the right roles. You were one bad poem away from losing favor, getting demoted, exiled, or even killed. After Empress Teishi died, Sei Shonagon's status pretty much died with it. She retired from service. Her writings often had a tone of sadness and nostalgia for her time in service. It's a bit depressing, but it wasn't all like that. People in the Heian court had a lot of fun too, especially as they went around cheating on their spouses all the time. Click here to learn about Heian cheating culture and how affairs were the most common type of relationship. We have some new patrons on Patreon today. Dylan S, Amari19 S, Superman just became a member, and Betty Fielding. Thanks so much, you guys. Alright, I love you.